Now, this drawing I have up is the building section drawing that we all worked on. And you'll notice that I added some color to my lines here. And I did that to make things easier for me as I was selecting my line weights. And this is something that we do in my office, and in a lot of offices do it. Everybody has sort of a different system for working with lines in AutoCAD, and this for me is helpful. I know that my heavy lines are white and that my medium lines are cyan and that my light lines are red. And the way I set that up is if I go into my layer properties, down here by my dark, or I often call dark heavy, so please excuse me if I use the two interchangeably. So I leave that at white, and for my line weight light, I change that to red. So I just click here and then click on red. And then for my medium, I click on cyan. And generally what, at least in my office, what we do is red is the lightest, then yellow is a little darker, then green's a little darker, cyan, purple, magenta, and then white is the heaviest. So you always know, you're moving darker as you're moving through this color scale here. You can set yours up that way if you'd like. If you want to work all in white, that's perfectly fine. That's the way that COD has their standard, that's the way they've set them up. But for me, it's just a little easier for me to be able to catch all of those lines that I want on the medium, on the medium line weight layer versus the light line weight versus the heavy. So you may be saying, okay, well, that's all well and good, but what happens when you plot, right? So let me just go over to, I'm just going to go over to the elevations and sections here. And if I want to plot this or make a PDF of this, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to type plot, or I can go up here to the printer right here and click on plot. So why is it plot and not print? Well, in AutoCAD, generally we're using really large format sheets of paper, right? That your standard printer isn't going to be able to take or to be able to handle. And when you are using a plotter, you are plotting. So by default, when we're printing or plotting, we're using the plot command and not print. All right, so when I type plot or click on the plot button, I get a plot dialog box. And there are a whole bunch of options here. And there's sort of a reduced plotting here. There's a little button down here in the lower right-hand corner. And then there is a more enhanced. And I always have the more enhanced open. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to identify the printer or the plotter. And there are a whole bunch of printers. Now, this WF7720, this is my printer that I have here. And your printer at home or in your office or wherever you're working will be in this list. And then there will be a bunch of standard standard printers, I guess these are, that you can use to create PDFs. And AutoCAD has a couple here, a general documentation, high quality, and then one, if you need to really conserve on file size here. The ones I generally use are general documentation. That's the plotter I generally use. Now today when we're plotting, I'm going to make some exceptions to these, but in general, when you're plotting, that should be the plotter that you use. Then there is the paper size. And by default, in our template here, we have our printer or our paper size set to 18 by 24 inches. So for this tab is 18 by 24. That's a pretty standard size, but you can change it to a whole bunch of the sizes: 36 by 48, or 24 by 36, or 8.5 by 11 if you want, or 11 by 17. So there are a whole bunch of different sizes that you can force your printer, your paper size to go to. The next thing is what to plot. And generally there are three options. Well, I guess there's four. There's display, there's extents, layout, and window. I normally have mine set out to layout, or if I'm printing in model space, I will plot a window. And we'll be plotting a window today later on. But in general, when I'm in paper space, I set my plot area to layout. So what is the layout? So I've got a gray screen here, and then I have this white that represents the size of my sheet of paper, and that is your layout. And then I have over here on the right the plot scale. And generally speaking, I want my plot scale to be full size. When I'm plotting in paper space, I want my plot scale to be full size, and that is 1:1. So if I don't have to do that, there are a whole bunch. I can do it at half size here if I want to reduce it, or I can plot to a specific scale. If I'm plotting in model space, very often I will plot to a specific scale. But when I'm in paper space, rule of thumb is to plot full scale. And the last and also very important is the plot style table. And there are this can be really, really complicated, these CTB files, but the one that we're interested in is monochrome. So what monochrome does is it converts everything from color to black and white. So once I set this up, I can apply this to the layout if I want to, and then I never have to set this again. It will always remember all of the settings that I put up in this window here. So, but if I want to change that layout, and sometimes I do, I won't click apply to layout, and then it'll revert back to the way I did it last time. And then the last thing is in this lower left-hand corner, I can preview. When I click preview, it will preview my plot here. So what do we notice here? Let's close this. So I'm going to apply this to my layout here, and then I'm just going to close this. So when I'm looking at my paper space here, as you know, we created viewports for each of the elevations that we wanted to include in our on our sheet. And we also created a viewport over here, that circular viewport that we wanted to use as a blow up of this detail blow up here. And when I plot, and by the way, once I set my my plot settings here, and then I apply to the layout, I can go over. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, right there is plot preview. So I don't even have to click on plot. I can just go over to plot preview and click on this, and I'll see what this image is going to look like. So you'll notice that I don't see the viewports. And I don't want to, right? When we have our sheet here that we're submitting to a client or to a contractor or anybody else, they don't need or want to see those viewports. It's just in the way. But this circular viewport here, we do want to see. And I'm just gonna zoom in here a little bit. So we want to define the limits of this, and we want this to say, okay, this circle here is this big circle here. We're zooming in on it, so I want to see that viewport. So in this specific case, in this very specific instance, I don't want to put that viewport on the viewports layer. And I know that, so I didn't take off for that, but some of you diligently put that viewport on the viewports layer. And if I did do that, let me just do that. I'm just gonna take it, and I have it on my medium line weight here. But if I put it on my viewports and I do a plot preview, you'll see I no longer see that viewport because AutoCAD doesn't plot what's on the viewport. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. And by the way, why doesn't it? Does anyone know? Why doesn't AutoCAD plot the viewports layer?
Because we locked it.
No, a good guess, but no, that's not the reason. The reason is because in here, I'm in my layer properties, and I go down to the viewports layer. Right here to the left of color here, there is a plot column here. And you'll notice that on that viewports layer, there's a little red do not enter sign here. And that is telling me that that layer will not plot. And by the way, I can do that with any layer. If I don't want my furniture one layer to plot, I can click on that and that layer will no longer plot. AutoCAD will not plot that. Now I do want it to plot, so I'm going to turn it off. So this is a way for you to, have stuff on this viewports layer and be confident that it's not going to show up in your final drawing. So that's the reason why viewports does not plot, because we just set that to do not plot. All right. So that is just a little tutorial on plotting. Now let's get into getting ready to take these drawings or this elevation here. I think we're gonna convert this one to Photoshop and render it there. All right. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a new drawing. I want to keep all of my drawings, nice and clean and ready to go. And every iteration of my drawing, I want to save, because sometimes you need to go back to them and, you accidentally, oops, get rid of something and you need to go back to it. So what I did was I renamed this file. This was my elevation file here. And I renamed it Kitchen Elevation PS for Photoshop. Now, this file is actually, I just went through the file naming procedure. So, you might ask, well, why aren't you doing first name, last name? Those files that you are going to turn in to me, like those are the files that I would like you to name properly with your name. But these temporary files and this Photoshop file, this AutoCAD Photoshop file, is a temporary file that you're not going to be needing to submit. I don't think. All right, so you know what? Let me just make sure I got this. Who knows what I may have done? I'm going to do a save as, and I'm on my jump drive in my CAD 2 folder under Project 9, and I will just call this. I'm actually going to call it for Photoshop. Okay. Now, the only thing that I'm going to be rendering in Photoshop is this file. And Photoshop doesn't need to see the rest of this stuff. So I am going to delete it. And I'm just going to delete this stuff too. I don't need, I may decide later on that I might want to render this elevation and this elevation. So I'm going to leave them for now. But this is the elevation that I'm really concerned about, or that is really my focus here. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I need to prep this for Photoshop. And the first thing, I have a bunch of blocks here. And what I want to do is I want to explode those blocks. In fact, I just want to explode everything. So I'm going to just type X for explode. And I'm just going to select everything just with my window here. And I'll just hit enter. And now, like this refrigerator, each of these are lines, right? It's not a block. Everything is separate here. Just make sure. This didn't explode.
I have to do it twice. It explodes. I don't know. It was like it exploded my blocks first, and then it exploded the existing blocks, like the fridge and the whatever you pulled in that was a block.
Yeah, it looks like I like for this, I needed to explode it twice. So that's fine. I'm just gonna explode it twice. And these knobs are blocks, and I'll explode those too. So I'm just going to go with the explode command again, and I'm just going to select everything. So now I have, yeah, everything is exploded. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to put everything on my medium line weight. So I'm going to select everything, and I'll just put it on line weight medium. So in my case, I had set my medium line weight to cyan. So almost all of my line work changed to cyan, but not all of it. And curiously, it's the lines that were in the block did not change to cyan. Why not? Well, let's see. Let's see if we can figure it out. So I'm just going to select a line here. And I'm going to open up my properties palette so I can see a little bit about this line that I selected. So you'll notice that it's on the right layer. It's on my medium line weight layer. So that's right. But what you'll notice is that the color is set to white and not it's not by layer. It's set to white. So no matter what layer I put this line on, it will always be white. And that's a function of this block that was created. It's nothing that we did. It's just a function of the block. So what I want to do is I want everything, all of my line work, to be by layer. So I'm going to select all of my line work, including the blocks. And then here so on my layer here, it says line weight medium. Perfect. That's right. And for my color, it varies. And I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and pick by layer. Not by block, but by layer. So now all of my line work is all the same weight, and it's all going to come in nice and clean and crisp, or hopefully. So what don't we don't need to see these diagonals. So I'm going to get rid of those. And I think that's good. So I want to think about where I want materials. So I'm going to at least on mine, what I want to do is I'm going to extend my backsplash all the way up the whole this whole wall so that it runs on both sides of my fume hood here. So I have a horizontal line here, and I'm going to erase that so that I have clean space up here that I'll be able to get all of my pattern that I'm going to apply to that area. And this will be paint. I think this will be good. All right. So now I'm ready to export this, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot this to a PDF. So, okay, so I'm going to go over to my plot button here, or just type the word plot. That's fine. And I'm going to select a plotter. So what I had suggested before for when you're plotting in Paperspace was this AutoCAD PDF general documentation. But for this, I'm going to click high quality. So AutoCAD PDF high quality print. I'm going to select monochrome here for my plot style table. And for my document size, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to ANSI B down here, 17 by 11. I want to plot 11 by 17 or 17 wide by 11 high. And you'll see there's a little preview here, 17 by 11. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot a window. So I'm going to click window. And I'm just going to click this much. This is what I want to plot. I'm telling AutoCAD this is what I want to plot. And you'll see, so down here, this is my 17 by 11 sheet of paper. And then you'll see that little hatched rectangle, and that represents where that plot is going to appear on that sheet of paper. And that looks fine to me. So you'll see also here that the plot scale is fit to paper. If I uncheck that, I can do a size, you know, let's just say 1/8 inch. Let's see where that. So if I plot at 1/8 inch, that's how big that image will appear on 11 by 17 sheet of paper, that tiny little rectangle. But I want to do, I'm not, you know, since we're in Photoshop and Photoshop doesn't use scale, right? You never drop your scale down on a Photoshop drawing and measure it. We're just looking at imagery there. I am going to make this fit to paper. So I'm just going to click fit to paper. And down here, I'm going to center the plot. So now it has centered it up and down. There's an equal margin up at the top and the bottom, and that plot is centered. And let me just preview it. Lovely. That's just what I want. That's just what I want to see. Okay, so I'm going to close that preview. And I will, you know what? I will apply this to the layout here. And then I'm going to click OK. And now AutoCAD is asking where I want to put that file, the PDF file. So I'm on my jump drive in CAD 2 project 9, and I'm going to call this my kitchen elevation. And there it is. When it plots, at least on my computer, AutoCAD just shows me the plot preview, and I've got it there. Okay, so now we're done with AutoCAD for now, and I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I'm going to start a new document, file, new. And I'm going to do 11 by 17. So I'm going to do 17 wide by 11 high. I'm going to set my resolution to 300. And so, okay, so let's just talk about RGB versus CMAC color. The two colors you would ever want to use, not ever, but most of the time you want to use is RGB color or CMAC. So what's the difference between them? RGB stands for red, green, blue. And when you are plotting to a screen, like a computer screen, or you have an overhead projector, or you're going to do a PowerPoint presentation, you're going to be using light as your source. And when, like on TV screens or monitors, they're shooting out red, green, and blue colors, different combinations of them to achieve whatever colors you're going to be using. So for the most part, I do RGB. If you are going to be, you're going to be doing glossy printing on a sheet of paper, then you might want to choose CMAC. CMAC stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and K is black. So if you are going to, like if you're doing magazines or you're printing to paper, you generally want to do CMAC, but I generally do RGB. And the nice thing about RGB color is that it prints nicely also. And you know what? Actually, CMAC shows up fine in on screens as well. It's just that there's just subtle differences between them, and Photoshop is so exacting, for the whole photography industry and everything, that they make a distinction that really probably isn't all that important to us. And then the last setting I want to make sure I have is transparent set. And then I'm just going to create a new document. And there it is. Now, this document, before I go any further, I'm going to save. And this is the document that I believe you're going to be sharing with me or turning in. So I'm going to save as, and let me just make sure I've got it in project 9 here. And so it first, we want to make sure that it's a PSD file, a Photoshop file. And so you will call it your first name, your last name, an underscore, and then the name of the project. So this is Photoshop Kitchen. Or whatever. Yeah. This is less important than your first name and last name. All right. So now I have my document on my screen here. The gray and white checkerboard represents transparency. That means no color or nothingness. There's nothingness. Remember, in Photoshop, when we're drawing on a piece of paper, we think of that white sheet of paper that we're drawing on as nothing, right? A void of any ink or pencil or pen or marker or crayons or anything that we apply to it. But not so in Photoshop, because white is a color in Photoshop. So I can apply the color white to an object, and then wherever I have white, there is no transparency. So by default, our objects our image here, or our render here, is transparent. All right. So now I am going to bring in my line work that I just created. So I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to go down about 2/3 of the way down, and I'm going to place Embedded. And that means I'm going to embed that file into my render here. So where is it? Here it is. It's my kitchen elevation.pdf. I just created it, and I'm going to place it into my document. Just hit OK here, and there it is. It's put it right in the center, and you'll notice that there's a big X in the middle of it. That X means that it is in the transform tool. That means that I can transform this image if I want to. And when I say transform, that means to distort or rotate or move the image in some way. And you'll notice that at the 4 corners and also midway around the image here are little grips tiny little boxes, similar to like in the grips in AutoCAD. And what I can do is I can grab one of those grips and I can change the size. If I hold my shift key, I can distort this image. I can do all kinds of stuff with it. I can also rotate this image if I want. And I can move this image anywhere I want on my document. So I don't want to, so I'm going to hit Control Z here. I don't want to do that. I just want to bring that image in just the way Photoshop placed it into my document. So to get out of the transform tool, I'm simply going to hit my enter key. And when I do, now I have my image in my Photoshop document. And you'll notice that I've got my layers palette over here off to the right. And I have a new layer called Kitchen Elevation. Now your layers palette, you may have, let's see here. No. Let's put channels up here. Well, you may have here, wait, let me go back to default, because who knows? Okay, but if this is the first time you're working in Photoshop, your screen will look something like this. There's a whole passel of stuff here, and it's stuff that we just don't need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this stuff, and over here on the right, I can sort of let me just close this tab group here. No, wait. Let's just close. Yeah, there we go. So I just closed that whole thing. And the reason for closing it is to increase our working space, right? Our real estate where we're working. So we're not working in a, 2/3 of the screen. We're working through most of the screen. I can also raise and lower this layers palette here. And there is these swatches, these are swatches, and color picker is up here, and you can leave that there if you want, or you can get rid of it. I often like to get rid of it because we use lots and lots of layers, and I want to see as many of the layers as I can. But for now, you know what, I'm going to leave it. But if you'd like to get rid of it, you can just go down here and you can close. And they'll all go. But I'm just going to leave it for now, because I think that this might be the way that most of you have your Photoshop set up. Okay, so now I've got my line work on my transparent background. And what I want to do is I want to put a white background down just so that it's easier for me to read, or easier for me to see. So I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm just going to go down here. So down at the bottom of my layers palette here, this is my layers palette. Down at the very bottom to the left of the trash can, there is a little button here to create a new layer. And I'm going to create a new layer right there. It's called layer 2. And the first thing I'm going to do is rename it. I always want to rename layers so that they're meaningful to me. And I'm going to put this, make a white background. So I'm going to call this cleverly white background. And I am going to paint this whole layer white. So first, I want to select the color. I'm going to come down here to the left side. This is my tool palette here. And at the very bottom of my tool palette, I have two colors that are always active, a foreground color and a background color. And if I click on the foreground color, I get a color picker that comes up, and I can pick, literally any color in the rainbow. And you'll notice that my foreground color is now this bluish cyan color. If I want to go to black and white, pure black and pure white, not almost white or not almost black, but pure 100% white or black, what I like to do is just this tiny little button right above my foreground color. It's a little black and white, and I'm just going to click on that. And that has set my foreground color to black and my background color to white. Now, I'm always drawing or painting with my foreground color. So if I want to flip my foreground and background colors, there's a little flip button right here. It's two little arrows, and I can just switch them out by just clicking on that. Oh, now my foreground color is white, which is exactly what I want. So now I'm going to use the paint bucket tool to paint this whole layer white. All right, so this is the tool palette, as I mentioned, and halfway down on your tool palette, mine is showing the gradient tool, but there's a paint bucket. That by default, you'll see the paint bucket tool the first time you open it up. All of the tools in Photoshop have other tools that are tucked underneath them. So I'll call this below. So like this blur tool is below the paint bucket tool, but underneath, tucked underneath the paint bucket tool, if I left click and hold, some other tools come up. And one of them is the gradient tool. It's a tool that we use a lot, at least in VizTech, we use a lot. And if you're on your screen, you have the gradient tool, just left click and hold, and then select the paint bucket tool. And you'll notice that my cursor has changed into this cute, tiny little paint bucket. And you'll also notice that up at the top, I have a menu here. And this is a context-sensitive menu that changes depending on which of these tools I'm using. For instance, if I have the magic wand tool here selected, you'll notice that my context-sensitive menu is different. And if I have the paint bucket tool selected, you'll notice that my context menu is different here too. So there's a couple things that I want to make sure that I have checked or unchecked here. And the first one that I want unchecked here is anti-alias. What anti-alias does is it kind of blurs. As I get close to a line, it blurs so that there's more of a smooth transition between the two colors. And this is great for photography, because, when you're on faces, there aren't always sharp lines. So anti-alias is a great tool to have clicked for them, but we don't want that. I do want, let me just check my notes here to make sure that I'm getting it right here. So I do want all layers to not be checked here. And I'm also not going to check contiguous. So none of these will be checked. And when I click on a point, just any place in my document, my whole screen has turned white. And what Photoshop has done, let me undo that. You'll notice here in my layers palette here on my white background, there is a little thumbnail, and you'll notice that thumbnail is that gray and white checkerboard, right? So when I go here, I'm just going someplace in the white zone here on my rendering here on my screen, and I'm just going to click on it. I have painted that entire layer white. And if I look over here at my layer stack, you'll notice that my little thumbnail is all white now, right? It's no longer gray, it's all white. So now all I need to do is I need to change the order of this layer stack so that my line work is on top of my white background, because I'm drawing my line work on top of the background. So I can do it one of two ways. I can either drag my background so it's below my kitchen elevation line work, or I can drag my line work and bring it above my background. So just because I have my background selected here, I'm going to left click and hold. And then as I start to move it, you'll see that my cursor turns into this little fist. And I'm going to just drag it. See that blue line that just appeared? That's telling me that it's going to tuck that layer below my kitchen elevation line work. And when I click on it, now I have my kitchen elevation line work is up at the top of my layer stack, and I've got my white background below it. And then I have yet another layer that there's nothing really on this layer, and I'm going to delete it. So all I need to do is highlight it and just hit my delete key here. Or I can drag this layer into my trash can. Either way. Also, to the left of the layers, you'll see a couple eyeballs here that are both turned on. If I want to turn my background off, I'll just click and turn that background off. Just click on the eyeball, and you'll see that I'm back to transparency, right? Because I'm no longer seeing my background. I can turn it on, and if I want to turn my kitchen elevation line work off, I'll just uncheck it. It's not like it's gone, it's just turned off. Kind of like freezing layers in AutoCAD. All right. So let's render this baby. I'm going to go up to my kitchen elevation line work here. And I'm going to start with some paint. And I'm just going to paint this piece of wall right here. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm holding my Alt key, and I'm just rolling my mouse wheel to zoom into that area. And if I hold my space bar, I can pan.
Paul, I have a quick question. Does Photoshop periodically save like AutoCAD does, or do we have to continuously save it ourselves? Or is it just always save it?
No, it's not always saving it. And no, it does not periodically save. So yes, I think that frequent saving is a great idea. So in fact, I'm going to save my file and then save. Great question.
Well, to pan, do you just do the space bar and then the wheel?
No. What I'm doing is I'm holding the space bar, and then I'm using my left mouse button and holding it, and it's moving me around. And if I want to pan, I hold my Alt button and roll my mouse wheel.
Okay, mine, for some reason, I can't pan.
Well, so hold your space bar, and then when you hold your space bar, my cursor turns this cute little hand, this little Mickey Mouse hand. And then when I'm holding my space bar, and and then I click down on my left mouse button, and I can move left and right. I don't want, you know what, if you hang back after class, maybe we can figure out what the issue is.
Okay, thanks.
There's slider bars on the bottom and side too.
Yes, that of course, I was going to mention that too. And with those slider bars, you can also pan left and right, or up and down. If you're only seeing part of your image, you can. There's a slider bar here too.
Paul, if I don't have the slider bar, how do I get them back?
Oh boy, you guys just have a question for everything, don't you? Let's talk about it at the end. I know that there's a way in settings, or maybe it's in view. Rulers. Let's do that question at the end, because I don't want to spend time searching for it, because I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
All right, so I am going to apply some color to this back wall. And there's a couple ways I can do it. I can use the paint bucket tool, just like I added color to my background layer, and I can apply color just to this area. And that's a great way to do it. But there's actually a better way to do it. And that is using a fill adjustment layer or fill layer, which is down here. And if for those of you that were in my Viz Tech class, we actually just talked about it on Monday. So what I want to do first, though, in any case, no matter how I'm doing this, is I want to select the area that I want to apply paint to. If I don't select an area that I want to apply paint to, Photoshop just applies paint everywhere. Just puts paint down, just like it did for this white background. So I want to go to my magic wand. It's this fourth button down. And if it doesn't say magic wand, left click and hold, and some other options will come here, and find the magic wand tool and click on that. Now I'm going to click my kitchen elevation layer here. And I'm going to click on the area of the wall. And by the way, there is settings here. So I'm going to turn off anti-alias here. I am going to leave, in this case, contiguous on, and I am going to leave sample all layers on. So I've got my area selected. And what I can do is I can create a new layer, call it walls, and apply a color to it. But I'm going to do it a slightly different way. And I like this method better because it gives me better control of being able to tweak that color later on if I want to. So I'm going to go down to the fill layer here, or the adjustment layer button here. And it looks like a little black and white cookie down here. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to click solid color. And from here, I'm just going to pick a color. I'm just going to pick this. I don't know. For now, I'm just going to pick this taupey color here. I like that. So yeah, and I'll click OK. Now you'll notice that AutoCAD has created a new layer for me. I didn't create this layer. AutoCAD created it, and it's a color fill layer. And I know that because it says color fill 1. This is my first color fill layer. First thing I want to do is rename this layer. And I'm going to call this walls. Something meaningful to me, so that later on, when I want to change the walls layer, I'm like, what was that layer again? You know. And you'll notice that there are two little thumbnails here. The left one is a little swatch of the color that I chose. So if I double click on this swatch, I get my color picker here, and I can change that color at my whim to anything else. You know, maybe I want this goldenrod color. I don't know, you know, whatever. So I'm going to hit cancel. I don't want to change it. I just wanted to show you that you have the ability to easily change that color. And to the right of it is a layer mask. And the layer mask, what I keep calling this AutoCAD, what Photoshop does is it actually puts this taupey color that I selected, it actually puts it on the entire layer, on this entire walls layer. And then what it does is it screens out everything, all of that color, except for that area that I had selected earlier with my magic wand tool. And it only allows that area to shine through, to come through. So that's why on this little thumbnail here, you'll see that there's this black all over it. And then this little, in this case, little L-shaped piece of white, which represents this L-shaped piece of color here. So this mask is covering everything except for that area there. All right. So I think also what I'm going to do is, and you may want to do this differently, but for me, I'm going to paint my upper cabinets. And then I'm going to put a wood grain on the lower cabinets, and I'm going to paint my upper cabinets. That's what I'm going to do. All right. So, and you know what? I'm also going to paint my crown molding here. So I think I'll start with the crown molding. Come up here, and I've got my my magic wand tool selected. And what I want to do is I'm going to select all of these areas. Now, if I select that area and then I select this area and select that area, you'll notice that it changes my selection set, right? And if I want to add to my selection set, all I need to do is hold down my shift key. And when I hold my shift key, you'll see that Photoshop has a little plus sign there. And now as I click, it is adding to my selection set. Now I don't want to click the lines, because if I click the lines, then all of the lines will select. I don't want to do that. I just want to click the white space in between my lines. And you know what, while I'm at it, I'm going to grab this one too. All right. And I'm going to give it a color. So I will go down to my black and white cookie down here, click it, click solid color. And it's giving me a white, but I'm going to, I'm going to match this. And maybe I don't want it the same color, but maybe I want it a little lighter. I don't know. I'm just going to go up a little bit. There I've got my crown molding. And right now I'm going to change this to my crown molding. Is it M-O-L-D-I-N-G or U? I'm going to call it. All right. And I'm also going to paint my cabinets here. And I'm going to do them the same color as the crown molding. So again, with my magic wand, I'm going to select all those areas I want to paint. And I'm holding it on my shift key, and I'm selecting. So I'm selecting my rails and stiles, and I'm going to do the panels differently because I'm going to add a little drop shadow on them just to show them kind of going into the, not in the same plane. If yours are in the same plane, then you certainly can just do them all at once. But so I want to catch that and that.
Hey, Paul,
I want to catch my refrigerator. Yes.
would you be able to show us, so you're trying to collect all your cabinets, you forget one part of it, but you already created your layer and you want to add it to it. I can't remember how to do that from this.
I'm going to do that. I am going to do that because I'm going to add these to this set here. So.
Yeah, I'm going along with you, and I did one side of my crown molding, and then I was like, shoot, there's the other side.
Yeah,
so
right.
I want to see how.
Right. So, all right. So I selected these cabinets, and then I selected also my fridge surround here, and now I'm going to add a color to it. So I'm going to go down to my black and white cookie, go to solid color, and I'm going to select my crown molding. I'm going to do it in the same color there, and I'll hit OK. So there, I've got some color on my cabinets, but gosh darn it, I don't have it here. So that's easily done. I guess you could do it on another layer, but that's not really what you want to do. You want to add all of this color onto the same layer. So what I want to do now at this point, we're editing this color fill, and let's just call this upper cabinets. Right now, we already have an upper cabinets layer, right? And we've got stuff on it. So we want to add to that upper cabinets layer. So I'm going to take these rails and styles and I'm going to add that to my upper cabinets layer. So I'm now no longer adding color. What I'm doing is I'm editing my mask here. So when I'm editing the mask, I am adding, I'm working only in black and white, because that mask there, that's a clue right there. That mask is only in black and white, right? It's not showing this taupey color. It's just showing white and black. White is where I'm seeing the color, and black is the areas that's masked out that I'm not seeing color. So if I want to add color to this area, I need to add white to the mask. So I'm selecting the mask. So I'm on the upper cabinets layer and I'm selecting the mask. And I know that I have the mask selected because there's a little white box around the mask. Notice the white box is now around my swatch, not what I want. I want it around the mask. Okay, so now I'm going to go around and I'm going to select those areas just with my magic wand tool. I'm just continuing to go around, select all this stuff here, and I'll select the side of the cabinet too. And let me go in. I want to make sure that I want to get this added, that added, and I've got one more over here. Okay. Good enough, really.
Oh,
So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add white to that layer. Now you'll notice that when I select the mask, SketchUp is nice enough to switch my colors, my foreground color, background color to white and black. So, which is what I want. So now I'm going to go with my paint bucket tool and I'm just going to fill that with white. And when I fill that mask with white, it automatically changes to the color that I want. Oop, here's an area that I missed. So let me just go in with my magic wand, go in with my paint bucket, and I'm adding white to the mask. And what Photoshop is doing is it's adding white, but it's working really fast, right? So as soon as it adds white to this mask over here, it then allows this taupey color to shine through. Okay, so now let me deselect that. Control D deselects the area that I've selected. And I'm going to create another layer and I'm going to put these panels on that layer. And this is kind of an experiment. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to give it a go. So I'm going to select these inner panels here. And I am going to go back to my black and white cookie, pick solid color, select that taupey color, and hit OK. And I'm going to call this upper cabinet panels. And the reason I'm doing that here is I want to play with my FX down here. So I'm going to go to my FX and I'm just going to do an inner shadow on those. Let's see what happens. Well, okay, that's too much, right? But I think it's got the right idea here. I just want to give the slightest, the very slightest I think I'm going to turn mine is set here to, I think, about 90 degrees here. I'm going to change it just a little bit so it's on an angle. just to give it a little bit of three-dimensionality here. And so now over in my layers palette here, you'll see that my upper cabinet panels here have an effect attached to them, that inner shadow. So let's look at it with the effect off. I'm just going to turn that eyeball off. There it is with it flat. There it is with it on. Off, on. I kind of like it with it on, so I'm going to leave that. I think that worked pretty successfully. And you know what? I could also play with the crown molding up here too. So I'm going to go over to my crown molding layer. I'll go to my FX and let's try bevel and emboss. Let's see what, I mean, it may look terrible, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe not. Oh, maybe there. So let's see. And honestly, sometimes when I'm playing with this, I'll play with it for 15 minutes, before I get it exactly the way I want. But I'm starting to see a little bit of curve here, and it's starting to have sort of a three-dimensional effect, and that's kind of exciting me. I think I kind of like that. Okay, so what I don't like now is this taupey color with that. I think that's off. And if I want, of course, I can easily change that by going over to my walls layer here, right? And I can double click on the little swatch here, and I can pick that taupey color, and then maybe I want to bring it down and make it a little more gray or something like that. Maybe that's a little better. I'm not gonna fiddle with it too much, but you get the idea. All right, so let's move on to something maybe more interesting. Let's look at backsplashes. So in Blackboard, bear with me here now, see if I can find this stuff. So in my CAD 2 Project 9, I have a bunch of, no, that's not what I want. Okay, so let me go over to COD, CAD 2, no. Wood patterns, metals, accessories, miscellaneous patterns, appliances, chickens. Where are my tile patterns? Arrgh. No. Oh, for goodness sake. Accessories. Oh, how annoying. All right, fine. You know what? Let's find one. Let's go online and find one. So I'm going to go over to Google here. And I'm going to look for a tileable texture. So what happens if I choose backsplash? Tileable or seamless backsplash. Here we go. There's a subway tile. I could do that. Oh, I'm just gonna go with the plain old subway tile here. Oh, here, wait. How about this one? what I want to do is view it, but well, I'll save it. So I'm just going to click, I'm going to save the image. And now I'm going to put,
Well, I have a question for you.
yes.
So you can do subway tile for hatching. When you do that in AutoCAD, are you not able to do it in Photoshop? Like, are you not able to drag the image because it's?
Yeah, I think you can. It is line work. So yeah, I think you probably could. So I'm going to call this subway. Let's just open it, see what it looks like. Well, it's fairly little. So let me talk a little bit about tileable textures. A tileable texture is a texture that when Photoshop repeats it, it looks like the texture continues on in all directions, and it doesn't look like, you know, squares of that texture. So this side, you know, so like this is like, you know, 3/4 of a tile, and then you got 1/4 of a tile here. So when Photoshop repeats this and puts it over there, it will repeat that. It will make this hopefully seamless and look like it continues through over our whole backsplash area. So I just downloaded this one. If I believe, I'm 90% sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that there are some tileable textures on Blackboard for Project 9 that will give you some backsplashes and some granite and various things, so stainless steel, so you don't have to go searching for it. But if you do need to search for it, or you want to find a tileable texture of your own that you want to use in your kitchen, all you need to do is search for tileable textures, just like I did here, and you should be able to find a good one. Now, let's see. SketchUp texture. Yeah. So there is also this really, really nifty website called SketchUp Texture Club. And this has tons of textures, of tileable textures that you can, they're free. So if I go over to, well, Grammarly. I can go down here. Let's look at architecture. Here's wood, or here's interior tiles. So I can pick. Just as an example, there's a whole passel of tiles. And you can use these in SketchUp, but they also work really, really wonderfully in Photoshop. And you need to register. You need to get in. Just use an email address to create an account, and it's free. And you can download these textures. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. It's a great resource. And there's a bunch of these online, but this is the one that comes to mind right off the top of my head. So you can either go into this SketchUp Texture Club, or just go to Google and search for tileable textures or seamless textures. But tileable is really, seamless, I don't know, it might be a little more iffy. All right. So I've got my tileable texture. I saved it to my computer. And now I'm going to open it in Photoshop. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to Open. And now, where did I put it? I put a tile. There it is, my subway tile. I'm just going to open it. There it is. It's a little bit blurry, but that's fine. You might find one that has a little higher resolution, but I didn't want to waste a lot of time, class time, and searching for stuff. So this is hopefully will work good enough. So what I need to do is I need to put this into Photoshop's memory here. So all I'm going to do is go over to Edit, and then I'm going to define this pattern. I'm going to click Define Pattern. It's about after I click Edit, about 2/3 of the way down, click Define Pattern. And it's going to give me a default name, Subway Tile. I'm perfectly happy with that. So I'll just click OK. And now I'm done with this. I'm just going to close this. Get back to my render here. All right. So now I need to identify what areas that I want my subway tile on, which is back here. So I'll go over to my magic wand tool and I'm going to select my backsplash area. And there it is. You can see the marquee going around my gooseneck faucet here, around my whole area where I want the backsplash. And now I'm going to go to my black and white cookie. And instead of choosing solid color, this time I'm going to choose pattern. I'm going to choose a pattern, and so that's what Photoshop put in. That's a pattern Photoshop put it in. It's not the pattern that I want, obviously. So I have this little dialog box that came up, and there is the pattern that it's suggesting for me. And when I click down here, there are a bunch of other patterns, and the last pattern that I could do, I've got wood here, I can do all kinds of stuff, but the last pattern here is that subway tile, and there it is. Now it's a little bit small, but that's okay because I can change the scale of that tile. And I'm just gonna just move it until I'm happy with it. I can also move that around if I want. So what I'm doing is I'm just looking at the base here where it's hitting the countertop, and I want it to sort of line up with that because the first tile that they lay will be down here. So I want that to be a whole tile. I'm just going to go up. But you may have like a diamond pattern or something like that. You may want to be different, yours to be different. But that, for me, that's going to work. So I'm going to hit OK. And I have a new layer here, a pattern fill layer, and I'm going to call that backsplash. Now, later on, maybe I'll say, I don't want that pattern. I want to do a different pattern. No problem at all. I'll just go over to the little swatch here, double click on it. There's that pattern. I can click here. I might add another pattern, or I've got that stone. I can put that back there. And maybe you do want that stone back there. I can change that scale down, so that looks good too. But that's not what I want, so I'm going to hit cancel. So now I have a nice pattern on my backsplash. So let me add some wood to my base cabinet. Now let me go back here, and I think I've got some wood patterns here. So I do have some wood patterns here, and I've got I don't know. So I'm just going to pick one, and I think I'm going to choose something a little bit dark. I'm going to choose this mahogany, I think. I don't know. It doesn't really matter too much because I can always change it. So actually, maybe I'll put a couple of them in. I'll just put the mahogany in. So, all right, I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to open that in Photoshop. So File, Open. Now I need to find, here's my wood patterns, and I'm going to do this so I can see my icons here. There's that mahogany. I think I'm going to choose that. There it is. I don't know if this is going to be a tileable texture or not. It's got this light area here. Well, I'll give it a shot. So I'm going to go Edit and Define Pattern. American mahogany, beautiful, hit okay. I'm done with this, so I'll just go back to my render here, and I'm going to choose some areas. Oh, you know what? I also want a horizontal version of this. So I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to go to image and image rotation, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So now I want edit, define pattern, and this time I want this not American mahogany. I'm going to call it horizontal. So I've got horizontal grain and vertical grain, because when I'm drawing these rails and stiles here, I want the grain to be, you know, to match, to be correct, right? So I'll start with the verticals here, and I'm holding down my shift key, and I'm just selecting where I want vertical grain. And again, I'm going to do the same thing that I did up here with these panels. So I'm going to put that on its own separate layer. And I'll zoom in and select this stuff too. And I'm not going to go crazy here. You know, I don't want you to have to watch me selecting stuff for an hour here. All right. Now I am going to go to my black and white cookie. I'm going to choose pattern, and I'm going to choose that vertical mahogany there. Let me zoom in a little bit so I can see it closer. By the way, see, I'm seeing this line here. So this is really not a good tileable texture, but maybe I can get away with it anyway, just by moving it up. And I think I can. I think the scale looks pretty good. So I'm gonna say okay with that. So I'll hit okay. And now I'll do the horizontals here. So, oh, let me change this. So base cabinet vertical wood. And now I'm going to do base cabinet horizontal wood. So I'll select these. And I think I'll select my drawers. You could have vertical drawers, but I'm going to do horizontal. Black and white cookie. Pattern. This time I'll choose horizontal. That looks pretty good, I think. I think that's good just as it is. So I'll hit enter. All right, and last, let's just change this to base cabinet horizontal wood. And the last one I'm going to do is the interior panels, because I want to add that inner shadow to it just to give it a little bit of depth. So I'll go to my black and white cookie, pattern, vertical. Okay, so there for sure, that ain't working very well. Move that. That looks a lot better. I'll hit okay. And I'll call this base cabinet infill, or I'll just call it panels. And while I'm at it, let's add that inner shadow. So I'll go to my FX and do an inner shadow. And I think that looks just nifty. I'll just hit OK. And I'm good. So there's a lot of white around here because I didn't select everything, but you know, you'll do yours a little more carefully. So then I've got, you know, the rest of my millwork here, and I'll just go over this just one more time. So I've got horizontal wood right here, right? So I am going to select my horizontal wood, and I'm going to add this right to my horizontal wood down here. So I'll select. I'm selecting the the mask on my horizontal wood layer. And then I'm going to add to that mask, right? I'm not adding wood grain, I'm adding to the mask. So we add with the color white. So white is selected for me. I'll use my paint bucket tool and just plop in that, and I get to my wood grain. I'll deselect, and now I will do the same for my verticals. Find my vertical layer, select the mask, add white with my paint bucket tool. I have my vertical selected. And the last thing I want to do is select my infill panels. Find that layer. It's here. Select the mask. Choose white, because we're editing the mask, and I add my infill panels. All right. Starting to shape up a little bit. Now, how about the fridge and the appliances, the rest of the appliances here? So let's see what I got. I think I have some stainless here. Yeah, so I've got stainless. I've got some black stainless. Got concrete if I want a concrete countertop, I guess. Some maybe a bronze color or something like that. Or you can again go online, tileable textures, stainless steel, or whatever. Maybe you want copper for your, maybe you want a copper hood up here, a pounded copper hood. Could be beautiful. It's up to you. All right, I'm going to do the stainless because I've got it. So I'm going to go same process. Going to open it up in Photoshop. So I'll go to File, Open, find my stainless that I saved. Where is it again? Here's stainless. Wait, let me look at it. Yeah, there it is, stainless steel. So I have some copper here too, but I'll just do stainless. So I've opened up my stainless in Photoshop, and now I'll go to Edit, Define Pattern. There it is. I'm just going to call it stainless. Hit OK. And go back to here. And now what I need to do is I need to select my refrigerator. So that might be a little bit time consuming here, because I keep trying to zoom while I'm holding the Shift key, and that's what gives me that goofiness. I need to hold my Alt key. Now I'll go to my Shift key to add. I'm going to add all of these slats here. And whatever that is, and all of this goofy stuff here. Okay, and then I will go to my black and white cookie, create a new pattern, adjustment pattern layer. And I'm going to choose stainless. I think that scale is way too big. That scale is way too small. Let's see, what if I set it to 30? It's too big. Let's say 15. maybe.
Paul, to move the pattern, you're just holding down your left mouse key, right? And panning.
Yes, that while the pattern fill dialog is open.
Correct.
So I guess that looks pretty snappy, I think. So I'll just hit OK. If I want, so now I'm going to call this refrigerator stainless. If I want to move that pattern, let's just say I don't like it there. I want to shift it a little more to the left or something. And I just click on my refrigerator stainless pattern here. And then I go to the move tool, this very top tool here, and I move. Watch what happens. Not what I want, right? I'm going to undo that by hitting Control Z. Z is in zebra. So if I do want to move that pattern, I will double click on my swatch. And now I can move the pattern within the image.
Paul, if we want to do dark cabinetry, can you, like, let's say you want to do black cabinets, how would you show depth on that?
If I wanted these to be black?
Yes.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't show black. I mean, even if it's black, I'm not sure I would show black. But let's just see.
To do like a highlight instead of like a shadow?
Well, let me go up to it. I just need to find it here. Something like I'm choosing kind of like a chalkboard black here, and let's look at the inner shadow here. I might. No, I don't think I would do that. I think I would still. Well, so what happens if what happens if I do choose a light color? Oh, there I changed my blending mode to overlay, and that's starting to give me a little lighter if I wanted. I think you're going to have to play with it, but my instinct here is my instinct is to leave it black and just to show that subtle. I mean, I'm seeing it. I don't know if you can see it on my screen, but I am seeing some depth here. Oh, that's the way I would do it.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. What if you want to do glass uppers with something behind it and show items behind
well,
it?
first what you'd have to do is show the items, right? And then what you would do is apply a color to it. So I happen to have this dark color to it here. And then I'm going to go to, let's see if I can filter it. Let me go to my filter gallery here. Oh, I have to convert to smart objects, so that's fine. I will do that. And so there's my cabinets. And I am going to, there is a glass one here someplace. Oh, here it is, glass. So what you can do, Jennifer, was that you, Jennifer, that asked that question? I can choose glass here, and what this isn't showing up very well because I don't have anything in there, and it's also a dark color, but I can play with the distortion of it. You want to just sort of give it a little bit of distortion, even though yours may not be distorted, but it will add a little bit of white and a little bit of sheen to it to make it look more glassy than than flat paint. So that's how you would do it. Should I? So again, what you'll do is you'll select that panel, that inset panel, right? And then you'll go to the layer that the panel's on. Then you'll go to filter, and then there's a filter gallery here. And it may ask you to convert it to a smart object. And if it does, that's perfectly fine. And then the filter gallery will come up, and it may be too large. So in the lower left-hand corner here, you can click these buttons down here to get it so that you can see the image. And then right here under distort, yours may be up here on our artistic, but what I'm doing is I'm clicking distort, and then there's a glass setting right there. Or there's a diffuse glass here too. You may play with that one too. And it's a matter of playing with these to get it the way you want it to look.
Okay.
It'll work. Okay, so for next, so there's nothing really due for next week. I don't, there's nothing that you really need to turn in. But what I'd like you to do is get this far, and get your materials on, and get your paint selected, and all of that cool stuff that starts to make this look good. And then next week we are going to add flooring, we're going to add entourage, we're going to fill this in. I don't want to litter this with appliances and crap, but we can also look at that too. So if it were me, I'm not telling you what to do here, but if it were me, just looking at this, I think it would be nice if while I was in AutoCAD, is if I pulled this crown molding so it looked like it turned the corner and went back to the side wall, and then over here, I think it would be nice if this countertop here, if this line of this countertop continued across, so I can add texture to that the edge of that countertop.
So when you say the crown molding continue, you just mean like it basically would just look the same as the one next to it?
Yeah.
With the lines?
Yeah. I mean, unless it's your, so when I'm looking at the side of this piece of millwork here, if this is your intent for just to see the profile of the crown molding, and it very well may be, then that's great. But if you want that crown molding to turn the corner, and continue on here, I don't know, maybe while you're in AutoCAD, you might want to show that line, I leave it to you. So if you can get this far by next week, that's kind of the goal.
Paul, can you, it's not going to be real quick, but if we update in AutoCAD, do we then how do we get that update to show in Photoshop? Or do we have to go back? Do we have to make changes in AutoCAD and essentially start from scratch?
Well, what I'm asking is,
already started.
If you've already started.
There's no way, like, before when you could fix it in SketchUp, it was like when you placed linked or something, and then it would auto update.
Yeah. So if you wanted to do that, when I inserted my kitchen elevation line work, I went and I placed embedded, right? If instead I placed linked, then I could come back in AutoCAD and redo that. But you know what? Actually, I don't think you even need to do that. So when I'm in AutoCAD here and I go to plot, if I had, I created all of my settings and then I click this apply to layout, AutoCAD will always remember those settings. So if I plot this, let's do an experiment here. I'm not going to go crazy here, but I'm just going to draw this one line here. Oops. So let's say I want to add here. I'll do it on this side. No, that's all. I don't want to waste the time. All right. So now I'm going to plot again. And I'm not going to change anything. All of these settings are set. So I'm going to click OK. And it's going to ask me what I want to call it. I'm going to call it kitchen elevation. I'm going to give it a different name. I'll call it kitchen elevation revised or updated. I'll click save. Now, let me go back to my Photoshop rendering. And I'm assuming that I did not move this kitchen elevation line work when I brought it in. So let's go File, Place Embedded, and oh, I got to find it. Oh, there it is. Kitchen elevation revised. I'm going to place it. Fingers crossed. Yeah. So the big X is on it because it's in the transform tool, but I don't want to touch it. I don't want to move it. I'm just going to hit enter and look at, there it is. So yay, that worked. So now I have 2 layers of line work, right? And I can take this old one, and I can just turn that layer off if I want, or I could just leave it on. It doesn't matter because this one is now on top of it. You got that, Rebecca?
I do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Theoretically, could you also, since they're all just straight lines connecting to like where like it's obvious, could we just add a line in Photoshop?
Sure, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Let's just say, I don't want to go through that rigmarole, and I forgot I want to show this countertop here, right? So I'll go to my kitchen elevation line work line because I want my line work to appear on the line work line here. And I'm going to draw in black. So I'll select black. And then I'm going to go to my pencil tools. So 1, 2, 3, 4 above the paint bucket tool is either the brush tool or the pencil tool. I'm going to select the pencil tool here. And I've got, I have my cursor is that little do not enter. And that's because I'm going to need to rasterize this layer. So if I just left click, it's going to ask me, do I want to rasterize? And I'm going to say yes, it's okay to rasterize. And also all rasterizing is CAD. CAD works in rasters. Rasters are lines, actual lines. And Photoshop works in pixels. So when I rasterize, I'm turning that line work into pixels. That's all that is. So, all right, so I'm going to draw a line that's going across here. So let me zoom in and see if I can count how many pixels it is. I can't really that well. What if I turn my white background off? It's about right where I've got it. So that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I will start my pencil tool here, and my pencil tool is now set to 2 pixels. I can change it here. I can change the pixels, and I can make it really big. There's a big line, or I can make it really small. There's a smaller line. I'm undoing by hitting Control Z, but there's for me, a handier way of controlling it, and that is with the square brackets on your keyboard. To the right of the letter P, there are 2 square brackets, and the left square bracket makes my pencil smaller, and the left square bracket makes it smaller, the right square bracket makes my pencil bigger. So I'm going to bring it down. Let me zoom in. I'm going to bring it way down so that it kind of matches the size of my line here. Then I'm going to start here, and I'm going to left click, and I'm going to, wait a minute, sorry. Okay, I'm going to left click and hold, and then I'm going to hold my shift key down to get a horizontal line. So I could do, I was a little sloppy here, and mine is a little low, but I can get my line work in that way just as well. That'll work just as fine also. So there it is. I probably want to also, I would go and I would put the stainless on this too as well. If I, you know. Okay.